Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Sorting Thoughts podcast. Today, we are going to talk about three films I recently watched and felt like they needed to be talked about. So, if you're interested in films with themes of survival, empowerment, and psychological unraveling, then let's get into it.
Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas!
So, today we're going to be talking about The Running Man from 2025, where the main character is on the run trying to survive to save his loved ones. Then we'll dive into Harriet from 2019, on the rise, freeing her people from slavery. And finally, we'll talk about Die My Love from 2025, where Jennifer Lawrence's character's mental state is on the edge. So these three films all have different purposes and messages, but I feel like they all join each other on one thing. They all fight for what they believe in and take actions. It might be different for Die My Love. It's more in the artistic take the director took that you'll find this sort of take actions because it was in the way that she depicted mental health on screen, and they all don't fall for this is what society decided your life was going to be, and they don't fall for that. They don't let society dictate how their lives are supposed to be or how mental health is supposed to be. So let's dig in and let's talk about the first film, The Running Man from 2025. And this movie is about working class Ben Richards, desperate to save his sick daughter. He is convinced by the Running Man's charming but ruthless producer to enter the deadly competition game as last resort. But Ben's defiance, instincts, and grit turn him into an unexpected fan favorite and a threat to the entire system. As ratings skyrocket, so does the danger, and Ben must outwit not just the hunters, but a nation addicted to watching him fall. This movie was directed by Edgar Wright, and it is starring Glenn Powell, Josh Brolin, Michael Cera, Coleman Domingo, and Lee Pace. It is based on the book of the same name by Stephen King, the GOAT himself. And if you've been listening to this podcast since at least October, you know I love me a good Stephen King book or movie. So if you're interested in that, I did a whole episode called Ranking Stephen King Movies. But anyways, let's get back on track and focus on The Running Man and why I wanted to talk about it. This movie was not what I thought it was going to be, and I should have expected a deeper meaning than just a guy surviving by constantly running nonstop for 30 days. But I guess my brain was off. I'll blame the trailers for that because they emphasized and advertised this movie as just another action movie when it is far more than that. So let's dig in and see how it is more than an average action movie. Glenn Powell's character, Ben, is one of lower class, working class. He recently got fired from his job for speaking up against the work conditions he was in. But his daughter got sick, terribly sick, and the only way he found to give her the medical attention she needed was by participating to The Running Man, a reality TV show where three contestants run away from hunters who will try to kill them. So the longer they stay in the race, the more money he wins and is sent directly to his family. But what he didn't know is that the games are rigged and his fate has already been decided for him. So the network keeps him long enough to grow their audience and win more money. But after that, they will try and kill him. But what the network didn't know is that they fell on the wrong guy, literally. Ben is not like any other of their contestants they've ever hired for the show. Ben knows how the system works and he wants to make them fall. And with that fearlessness, he will succeed and be one step ahead of them most of the time. But I wanted to focus on how this dystopian society uses AI, artificial intelligence, to control the public opinion. And to me, it felt important to mention because today in our society, AI is growing each day at a time, and it's harder to depict AI photos from real photos. Like recently, there are photos of Millie Bobby Brown and Finn Wolfhard circulating on Twitter, and they look really good. Like, I for sure thought those photos were real photos that came from a real photo shoot. And the better these get, the better the videos will also get in the future. And that's really scary to me. Like, I don't particularly like that. And in this movie, Ben has to record tapes that he'll send the network for them to show during its airing time. And it's sort of an insight on his day to day life and how he is surviving and how he is spending his day. But in one of those tapes, he denounces the lower class conditions that profit the higher class and how the network manipulates the audience. But these are never shown. Well, they are, but what he says in it is entirely different, and it shows him off as an insensitive asshole that has an ego of the size of the world, really. And the audience doesn't support him anymore, but they also can't stop watching. Like it actually hooks the audience because they want to see how far this human being is gonna go and can go. So, and they don't really care because for them, he'll actually end up being killed. Why not enjoy the entertainment? You know, because nobody had won the show except like for season 1, and they're on season like 16 or 17. I don't really remember, but no one has ever won since the first season. So for them, that dude was going to die anyway. So I thought this movie had a very nice take on exposing how easily the truth, in parentheses, can be manipulated by the media. And the first thing you're taught in journalism school when you have to write an article is that you always have to pick an angle. And when you choose your angle, you go from there to write the story. But that angle is at the cost of another angle and other informations. So when an article is written, you only have like 50% of the information, if you're lucky. And that's exactly what the network does in this film, is that they picked an angle for Ben and they went from there. It really made me wonder how much in our society, in medias, how much is not told. And I've always been careful about that since my journalism classes. Like, it never seemed fair to me to only inform of 1/3 of a story or a fact. Like, it never sat right with me. And I didn't feel comfortable doing that. So that's why I picked fashion instead of news. But anyways, media's definitely like to shape the truth, and that's exactly what this movie is telling. Even though it's taking place in a dystopian society, it's not very far from the truth in our real world. Just like George Orwell's book, 1984, and how he wrote about a society being watched constantly. And we are starting to get into that, into a society that is being watched 24/7, with their cameras being installed everywhere, with our phones being watched, our activity online being watched. And you know, this is happening also right now in China. Like, to me, China is a real episode of Black Mirror, and that's frightening. Like, I don't I don't like that. So in this film, the manipulation is in the editing, the staged narratives of his recordings, and in the sensationalism as well. Like, all of this to keep the audience entertained rather than to inform them. And they really bite into it wholeheartedly and willingly. The people stop questioning everything once it's entertaining, when it's a spectacle. And I feel like this movie definitely is a reminder to stay alert, to stay critical, to stay vigilant, and to not be passive, to keep an eye open and not to have a blind eye and faith on TV and medias. Like, they're not the ones that get to decide what we have to believe in or not. And it could be easy to fall into that vicious cycle with AI, with viral videos and algorithm pushed content. Like, it can get hard to stay afloat. And technology is a great tool. I love my algorithm and I love how it keeps showing me the content that I like. But you know how our parents were like, be careful about what you see online when we were kids, and now they believe everything they read or see on the internet. I think we, as the generation that grew up with the explosion and growth of internet and social medias, we've always been kind of careful about what was real and what was fake. Like, we were always able to differentiate the two, and we've always been careful about who we talked to as well. Like MSN, Skype, Facebook, all of that is great, or was great, because MSN is dead, in Skype as well. But it's also a great tool for psychopath. Like, these platforms, these social medias are great to have the information in an instant, in a second, but we tend to forget that they're used by everybody. And by everybody, I mean literally everybody, including psychopath and including the dark net. Like, it's the whole thing. So it's always good to have a reminder to keep your eyes on and not be blinded. So to this day, let's stand by whatever our parents told us when we were young and just be careful. Don't be blind and it'll be fine. Like, yeah, just to be careful in general and just not to take everything like to a first degree of seriousness. Like, all right, that's your information. Like, okay, cool. I'll take some notes, put that in a part of my brain, but I'm not shutting the blinds to any other information about that information that I've just discovered. Like, maybe there's a few more factors involved. So yeah, I loved watching The Running Man and definitely recommend. Glenn Powell was extraordinary in this movie. So was Josh Brolin, but we're used to Josh Brolin playing a villain. Like, he played Thanos. So he's the villain of villains. So yeah, I definitely recommend you to watch this movie, and it is great. It is entertaining, but it also like gives you a warning. And I love me a movie that is capable of doing both entertaining me and also warning me about a subject. And by not being blind, here's a movie where a character absolutely did not turn a blind eye on the situation, and that character is called Harriet, and she has a movie named after her. So let's talk about this second film, released in 2019. So before talking and diving into this film, I wanted to mention the real Harriet Tubman and that this film is based off of her story. And I didn't know that when I first started the film. I discovered it at the end of the movie when they mention how she finished her life. And Harriet is one of these women we don't talk about enough. Just like Katherine G. Johnson, Dorothy Vaughan, and Mary Jackson. These black women helped with the first moon landing in 1969. And there was a movie that talked about these ladies, and it was called Hidden Figures. And it's really good. Go watch it. And I feel like there's a lot more unknown stories of women we don't know about and whom men have taken credit for. So I always appreciate a movie about these strong women. It always inspires me, and I want to keep seeing movies about these women and their inspiring stories. Back to Harriet. This movie, Harriet, is about the extraordinary tale of Harriet Tubman's escape from slavery and transformation into one of America's greatest heroes. Her courage, ingenuity, and tenacity freed hundreds of slaves and changed the course of history. This movie was directed by Casey Lemons. It was starring Cynthia Erivo, Leslie Odom Jr., Janelle Monáe, and Joe Alwyn. So, this beautiful film is essentially about courage, resilience, and leadership. It translates Harriet Tubman's real life achievements into this beautiful story led by the wonderful Cynthia Erivo. It really captures her courage, her determination, and as mentioned before, her resilience. And I feel like making her story feel urgent, personal, and inspiring really is what hooked the audience. And when you finish this movie, you definitely feel inspired and feel like if she was able to achieve this throughout the hardest and cruelest times in history known to this day, you can do anything in our time. And I finished this movie at 2 o'clock in the morning and I felt like I could get up and take on the world. Literally. Like I was fully on motivated. Like I didn't want to go to sleep. I wanted to go and put myself out there and just take actions. And it is also very helpful that Cynthia Erivo is playing Harriet because she's one hell of an actress and one hell of a performer. Like, we already knew that, but seeing how raw her performance of Alphaba was, I didn't think any of her other performances would be or could get any rawer, you know? Like, she did. And this was back in 2019, but I only watched this like 4 days ago. And wow, she was so incredible. And like, I love Cynthia Erivo. And I would want her to play these kind of roles all the time. Like, please, Cynthia, keep inspiring us through your roles. I will watch them. Like, I'm here for that. I'm here for that, and I'll stay. And I'll stay. I'll definitely stay. I love it so much. One of the things that I loved in this movie is that they added some singing to the story. I don't know if that part is historically accurate, but I love that we got to hear a little bit of Cynthia's voice. And I also loved the purpose of her singing. And the purpose of that singing was that she was calling out to the slaves and guiding them with her voice to freedom. And I love that they've added that because slaves used to sing in the fields during their day, and that singing and those rhythm are the roots of the blues genre. And yeah, adding that is just like, that tingled something in my brain, and I loved it so much. And also hearing Cynthia's voice, of course, like they had Cynthia Erivo in their movie and they had to somehow make her sing. And I loved that they did that. And they did it in the most thoughtful way. And like it had a purpose. It's not there just because they wanted her to sing. I love the fact that Casey Lemons was the director of this movie, and it brought light on this story with such respect. And it couldn't have been in better hands, and it couldn't have been anyone else. Like, if that movie would have been made by a white person, I don't think it would have made any sense. And she did such a great job, and I loved it. I also figured out that her son was in the film, and he plays the spy guy, Walter, and her husband is also in the film. He's Vorty Curtis Hall, and he plays the Reverend. I love that even though this film is an hour and a half long, they showed and told so much around slaves being free, slaves being not free, Black people being collaborators with white people, and really snitching on other Black people that were trying to be free. They showed the danger of Underground Railroad, and they showed the different aspects of slaves that wanted to be free and of Black people that were already free, but not entirely free because they couldn't act how they wanted in society. Like they had to make sure not to look at the white person in a wrong way. Like I loved that they included Mary's character, and through her you learn all of these little details, and she was perfectly played by Janelle Monáe, and they really showed everything and at least tried, and that gave so much intel, and that gave so much information around things that maybe not a lot of people know, and it added character to the story. It really added realness around the conditions. It added urgency overall. So, yeah, the storytelling was very compelling. The audience is always engaged. Like, you really want to know if Harriet's going to succeed, if she's going to get caught, if she's going to be able to free her family. Like, throughout the whole movie, I was stressed. I was like, I hope she makes it out. I hope her family makes it out. I hope, like, none of her family gets tortured because she escaped. Like, and she helped so many people. Like, we're talking about 700 slaves. She freed 700 slaves. How enormous is that? And that was in like 1850 to 1854, 56. Whenever the Civil War ends, like that woman led an entire army during Civil War as well. She fought for women's rights. Like that lady is such an inspiring figure. Like I truly wish I had seen this film before, and I wish I hadn't waited until like 4 days ago to watch this, because this is really one of those films that I'm going to make my family watch. And it's like, okay, get educated. This story is the story of a real badass woman during slavery. Sit down and watch and enjoy. Like, I don't think I can find the right words to say how much I loved this film and how much she inspired me. Like, wow. What she did is really out of this world. And I love that this story is about a woman. We don't talk about these women enough, or they are depicted in articles and brought down, whether they're black or white. I just love that I know about Harriet Tubman now. And don't get me started on the song Stand Up. I know the song was written for this film, but what I didn't know is that towards the end, when Cynthia says, I go to a place for you, these were the actual last words of Harriet Tubman. And that gave me chills. I was like, no way they included that. And that was like genius. I love this movie, and I really advise you to watch it. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. So inspiring. So, like, it's so unbelievable to think that somebody with this much courage did what she did when she had nothing. Like, literally nothing. And she did so much with nothing. So yeah, that's so inspiring to me. Like, that's wow. Like, I can't find another word than inspiring, because that's just how it is. And I love this movie. I definitely recommend it. It was a 10 out of 10 for me. Loved it. And finally, to finish off this episode, we are going to be talking about our third film, another story about a woman, but this one is about depression. And this is Die My Love. It was directed by Lean Ramsey, and it is about Grace, a writer and young mother, is slowly slipping into madness. Locked away in an old house in Montana, her increasingly agitated and erratic behavior leaves her companion Jackson worried and helpless. This movie is starring Jennifer Lawrence, that we've all discovered in The Hunger Games. It is also starring Robert Pattinson, that we all know and love from Twilight as Edward Cullen. And finally, we have Lakeith Stanfield, whom I've discovered personally in Get Out, the horror film. So this movie is based on a book of the same name by Ariana Arwitz. I don't know if I've said her name right. I'm so sorry. This film was very abstract in terms of portraying an emotional state, which made me think at one point that the main character, Grace, was actually not so mentally unstable, but just completely nuts. But Grace is actually acting on whatever goes through her head in a very exaggerated way, like when she destroyed the bathroom until she bled. And I've thought about this, and sometimes you get so frustrated that these sort of actions might pop into your head, but you don't act on it. It's just, something like a little voice that pops in your head, like sometimes when you're in the car and you're in the passenger seat or in the back seat and you're like, oh, what would happen if I actually opened the door while the person is driving? Like, would that actually be harmful? Those kind of thoughts. But when you're in that emotional state that Grace is in, and the choice of the director of playing these emotional states in a very abstract way, I feel like it shows them to their extent, like how far these emotions can get because they're so intense. But we're taught to suppress our emotions a little bit, to not be too loud, to not be, specifically as a girl, like we're taught not to be too loud, to sit right, to just be in this little box. And it's the same with our emotions. And the director chose to literally, I think she just told Jen and Robert to just don't hold back, just go all out. And that's exactly what they did. And there's a reason why these emotions are portrayed to that extent, is because Grace's character wanted to be seen by Jackson after having their baby. She wanted to feel desired, and I think there's a part of herself that wanted to destroy everything, including herself, just to prove that she existed, that, she had to hurt herself to actually feel alive, because Jackson wasn't giving her that. So maybe she forgot herself a little bit. And in her mental state and in her depression, she had this thing where she didn't know anymore what was real, and she needed to go as far as destroying the bathroom walls with her fingers, and she didn't stop until her fingers bled and until she felt alive inside, because that was the only way for her to feel something. And she also threw herself at a window. That one was crazy. I was like, whoa, girl, I don't think that's necessary. But also, who am I to judge someone who's going through so much stuff in their mind and depression? Like, who am I to judge anyone's reaction, And I felt like as the movie was going, the more her mental state was deteriorating. It's like her scream for help was getting bigger and bigger, because, she wasn't acting, in parenthesis, crazy at the beginning of the film. You could see that she was passive, but, she was maybe making complaints here and there. She was responding to the dog by barking back at it and, getting annoyed maybe. But then she started destroying the bathroom. Then she threw herself out a window. Then she killed the dog. Then she literally tried to abandon her baby in the middle of nowhere. Like, these actions get bigger and bigger as the movie is going. And as it is going, she feels like there's nothing she can hold on to, like not even herself, not even her child, and not even her relationship, because she's not being fully content with her partner. Like, there's no more sexual relationship. Like, all of the things that she probably had before her baby, she didn't have that anymore because she had other stuff to do. And there's probably a bit of postpartum depression somewhere in there, even though we learn a little bit about her past. So there's some patterns that tells the audience that, she's been depressive for a while, but having a baby and having postpartum probably hasn't helped anything. And her husband not looking or wanting her in the same way as before also played a key role in her mental state deteriorating. And one thing I loved is that at one point, Grace says to Jackson, "I'm right here. You just can't see me." And I feel like that's a pretty good summary about what this entire movie is about. It's very straightforward. Jen and Rob's performances doesn't really let anything else take place. And it is like the way we did it is the way that it is. It's showing through their bodies with body language, with movements, with facial expressions, and they don't talk that much. Like there's not much dialogue in this film. They just act, and the acting is very loud. And I love to see Jennifer Lawrence play these kind of characters. She had done it before with Mother and went really above and beyond. But it was more active than this one. This one rather feels like it's more passive. It's very forward, but the acting has a tone of passiveness. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's kind of how I felt it was. But because that's what depression also feels like, like everything is thrown at you, but all you feel is passiveness. Like it's like life is going on around you, but you are stuck in this state. And I feel like that's exactly how Jen did it, with a nice spice of acting on impulse and going crazy, going to the extremes of hurting herself to feel something. And that is really unsettling to see. Like, not only is this unsettling to see, it's unsettling to see it ravel that way. It's unsettling to see her being stuck in a house in the middle of Montana, in the middle of nowhere. Like, I'd lose my mind as well. Like, that's, you, as a woman, you want to be free. You want to do things. You don't want to be stuck and just clean and just prepare dinner and just take care of the baby. Like, we're not in the 20s anymore. Like, we're in the modern time. Like, we want to feel like a cool mom, like a mom that is able to do everything. So yeah, everything feels pretty much on edge. Grace was on the edge. Jackson was on the edge. The dog was also on the edge for the short time he was in the film. And there was also that one moment in the film where a familiar face comes up to Grace after she went to the hospital to get the help that she needed. And that person is like, "It's so good to see you. You seem so much better." And it's so unsettling. Like, why is that person even saying this? Like, does she think it's going to make her feel better? Like, does she think it helps? And that, to me, for someone who has gone through depression as well, is I'd rather you not say anything than remind you of the mental state that I was in, than say something. Like, you don't want to be reminded of how you were, how you acted, on impulse because that's how you felt in that moment. And impulse is really the only thing you sort of feel because that's the only thing giving you strength, giving you energy. And so it all feels a little bit clumsy. Like I feel like anyone who has gone through depression, we all have that one person, that wants to do good, but doesn't have the right tools and just like asks their own questions all the time. And it's like, just be present, just be here. I'll tell you if I need to say something, like, but they don't really know how to act. And that's also very understandable. Something I would have liked to know a little more is Gracie's professional life. It is said that she is a writer, but I feel like I would have liked to see how she was when she was writing because it would have helped the audience make a sort of before and after and how much her mental state had deteriorated. I think it could have also helped the audience relate a little more to Grace. But I also have this side of me that's like, depression is so particular to one person. Like, all the depressions are different based on the person who's going through it. Like, none of them are the same. We have some patterns that can be similar, like maybe we had this habit of doing something and then we stopped doing it during depression because we don't have the strength to do it anymore. And then we take that habit again once we're out of that state. But maybe that was also something the director chose to do because depression is so different from one person to another that there's not really a way to relate to that sort of depression. Another thing I really liked about this film is that this is not a cliche representation. It doesn't romanticize it in general, but specifically in this ending, Grace doesn't instantly get better when she gets out of the hospital. It really shows that a mental state and depression is far from being linear. For some people, the mind will stay fractured, and it is something that they're going to have to fight against their whole life. For others, it might be just a little segment in their life, and good for them. They don't get triggered by it, and it's good. It's just a little. It's just something that happened at one point in their lives, and good for them. Like it's all just so different. And I feel like Jen and Rob, being two very mainstreamed actors, really helped this movie being seen a lot more, and it brought it to the mainstream cinema. And I remember a lot of people online were like, oh my God, this is Edward Cullen and Katniss Everdeen in a romance. It's going to be so much fun. Nope. Like, that was not fun. That was raw. That was destabilizing. That was unfiltered, shocking even at times. And it shows to a bigger audience that mental health is very complex, that it's not the same for everyone. People have different ways to deal with it, to live with it. Like, this movie really pushes the boundaries of stories about mental health. Lynn Ramsey really took an artistic take around this movie and made it stand out. Like, you don't feel comfortable while watching this. I also felt like at one point I was really invading Gracie's privacy, if that makes sense. But it also, in a way, pushes you to look at it and see that not everything is beautiful. This is On the Run, On the Rise, and On the Edge. Each of these three films have their own powerful themes. Like The Running Man has the manipulation of truth by the media. Harriet has her resilience and determination to help others and make things right. And finally, Die My Love has its rawness portrayal of one's mental state. And all of these stories have made an impression on me, I could say. These are movies I for sure recommend to you 1,000%. You're entertained, but you also learn about new things. And that's what I love about these kind of movies. You always learn something. It's so interesting to me to go to the theater and know that when I'll walk out of the room, I'll have learned something. So if you've seen these movies, please tell me what you thought about them. I would very much like to know. Don't forget to follow for more, and I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.